fight. We don't have to kill. Everybody in the whole wide world really just needs to chill. No, we don't have to fuss, no, no, no. We don't have to fight.
Oh, I gotta turn this thing on.
We'll find out when we go upstairs.
Sort of on the air.
You and I won't find out. Ollie will find out.
Okay, so I don't know. Yeah, you wanted to get a clapper too. I don't know. I don't have the marker or anything, but
that's to tie in the audio. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is going to be a more comfortable episode of Just Chill. Welcome to episode 3. We've got the light on, and the guest is here, Michael Lifshitz. Unfortunately, the superior audio we have set up is not functioning up to capacity. So we're just going to be recording with the camera, slightly less sound quality, but as Michael pointed out, it's thematic it's the disabled episode. I guess for the listeners only, because we will put this up probably still just as audio. That's important to mention. They wouldn't know that you are disabled by listening only.
So just that Oliver doesn't sound like a evil person.
Yeah.
I am disabled, and I gave him that joke, so it is okay.
And there goes the dogs. Okay, well, this episode's going swimmingly. Can you just deal with them? It might just be Kelly coming back for something. Okay, so here we are. Yeah, no, it's also because I don't really know what's the proper etiquette, you know what I mean? It's like I never had a ton of disabled friends, so I don't know how you introduce...
So what you're saying is I'm the token disabled friend. Nice, man.
Well...
No, I'm kidding. Here's the thing. I always tell people, because I once had someone ask me, like, how do you like to be called? And I'm like, well, my name's Michael, so that's a good start.
Yeah, of course.
I've never been big on political correct terms. I mean, in theory, as person with a disability, but I've never been, because my thing is, if you're gonna have, instead of worrying about a correct term, don't have a nice word for a lousy attitude, right? Like if a girl says, I can't date him because he's a person with a disability, or I can't date him because he's a cripple. I'm not saying people should use cripple, that's not cool. But either way, I'm not getting laid, right? So that's the problem.
Yeah,
so don't have a nice word for a shitty attitude, right?
I think for me it's just more that I'm curious by nature, so like I don't know, like if you talk to someone like, oh, I'm disabled, or someone else says the same thing, but everyone's obviously disabled in different ways, and I never know, is it like impolite to say like, oh, what's your disability, or a question like that, you know what I mean? Just because I genuinely do wonder these things, you know?
So here's my take on it. So actually there was in 2006, the government actually came out with a booklet. Human Resource Canada came out with that. Instead of saying disabled person, you should say person with disability, or deaf person, a person with a hearing impairment. And the logic was you should say person first, because they're a person first.
Of course, yeah.
They're not defined by the disability or the hearing impairment or whatever the case may be. And honestly, I used to make jokes about that, because like to me, at the time I made a joke about how, so I went from being an amputee who couldn't get on the metro in Montreal to being a person with an amputation who couldn't get in the metro in Montreal.
Which
made me think, instead of the booklet, put money into putting an elevator in the metro. That would probably help a lot more. But it's interesting. So I was out in Vancouver, and I went to a restaurant, and the woman who was told the server, there's these 3 people, and then the wheelchair, referring to me.
Oh,
and I got pretty offended. And so when it came time to sit down, I'm like, oh, I got to go in with the wheelchair, because I was kind of hungry. I wanted to eat, and I pointed out to the guy, I'm like, I don't get to make a big deal about it, but considering I'm the person with the wallet who's paying for the food and drinks, it could be nice to acknowledge the person. And then later that weekend, I was out doing a show, and I took a bus, and I got off the bus, and when the bus pulled up, opened the door, the driver told people to wait because a person in a wheelchair was getting off. And just being called person in a wheelchair was... I was amazed at what a difference it made for me
Well, it
to
sounds
be
way
called
better.
a person.
Yeah, of course.
So that was a long story to basically say the proper thing is person with a disability.
Yeah.
As for asking like what happened,
Like, in what way are you disabled or something like that? Is that rude to ask someone that?
I think it depends on the context.
Yeah.
Like you and I are friends. If we're out talking and you have a question, that's different than if you were to just go up
You're ordering
to a
something at
random
Starbucks or something.
person.
Yeah.
Like I've had people come up to me and go, "What happened?" Because usually I'm out in my wheelchair, right? So.
Well, and I would always preface it with, like, if you're not comfortable answering that question, by all means don't, or something like that.
Right, but like, I mean, honestly, it does depend on my mood. Like sometimes I'm a little more, like part of me feels like, you know what, good on you to try and get awareness and ask questions as opposed to ignoring and not wanting to talk to someone because
or looking away
they're
or
afraid
something
to
like.
talk.
Yeah, of course.
But like, so there was I was at Salem Shopping Center and there was a woman on the elevator and she's like, I noticed a lot more people in wheelchairs lately. And I'm like, and I wasn't even sure how to answer.
Yeah,
and then I got off the elevator. I'm like, I'm gonna go get a coffee because I was really disappointed. I didn't say, "Haha, we're taking over," and they could think it's some sort of plot or something.
Yeah.
Or just tell her, "No, I'm just really lazy and don't feel like walking," which I have done to people.
Just to mess with people.
Yeah, just to mess with people. It's fun.
Well, that brings me to like something I was gonna say is that like you getting into comedy, it's got to just be a nice way to address some of those things and kind of like be able to say the things you want to say to people without it sounding like you're freaking out on them or whatever, you know? Kind of like putting people in their place and maybe making them recognize their behavior in a funny way though that makes it feel light and accessible, you know?
You hit the nail on the head. So when I started doing comedy, I decided. So I lost a bet, and when the bet was that I had to go do an open mic night.
Oh, that's awesome.
So and when I did it, there's actually a comic called Chris Finesca, and he actually his nickname is Crazy Legs. So he actually has cerebral palsy.
Oh.
And he actually was on Just for Laughs. And I remember he came out on like a walker, and they had a chair for him to sit on. And he's like, every time I'm arguing with my wife, she tells me to stop shaking my head at her because obviously he has like the muscle spasm. And I thought that was a brilliant way and a fun way to let people laugh a little bit and be comfortable with you, right? Because as opposed to being nervous about saying the wrong thing. So like, you know, my standard opening joke about I have multiple congenital musculoskeletal abnormalities.
I've heard this for sure.
Or the medical term for slightly effed up. I wasn't sure if we're allowed to swear or not, so I went with the effed up. And the whole reason I do that is to put people at ease. Like I even when I do a serious talk, I use that joke because I don't want people to be uptight and like be worried, am I gonna have to catch him if he falls off the stage, or like should I offer him a chair? Like why are they making him stand? It seems cruel. But
I think that's people worry that that they're gonna have to help or something like that. That people aren't gonna be self-sufficient. But with you especially, I've seen nothing but the opposite. Like I was, I don't think I told you this, but when we hung out and had that chat in the parking lot at Loblaws the other day. And I told a couple other people this because it made me laugh. It was like, we were parked pretty equal distance from each other. And I just casually walked back to my car, but I didn't dick around on my phone or do any of that, right? And I wasn't paying any attention to you. And then I pull up to the light, and I just barely make it, and you totally just made it through. And I'm like, shit, he got in his car, got to the light, and made it through before me. Like, disabled my ass. You know what I mean?
Okay, well, in fairness, it's pretty stock. The car is pretty souped up, right?
I saw it today, yeah, it's pretty awesome. But still, I don't know. I mean, even just doing comedy and stuff, you told me all about how you have to hoof it up and down the stairs, which is obviously much more difficult for you if you want to go tell jokes, you know, and most people don't consider that in their day. They're like, it doesn't even cross their mind. I never thought about it before, you know, how hard that would be and how demotivating that might be, you know?
Well, what's super funny, actually, is, not funny, that someone fell down the stairs. Yuck-yucks, that step when you go in, Like now they have that like kind of graded surface, but it used to be really slippery.
Okay.
And I once showed up for a show, and there was a guy who had like slipped coming in. They're like, "Michael, was that you?" I'm like, "No, I was." And actually, I'll be honest, not to be mean, the guy kind of breezed past me and didn't bother helping. So I was a little glad to
You're
give
like,
me
karma.
smart ass. But like, here's the thing, I have the advantage in that I'm always walk super slow and careful.
Yeah, that's true.
So where even like before I had the wheelchair and used to walk in the winter, I'd be there with like 2 canes with an ice pick going super slow, and people would be like slipping and falling all over the place. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm
Slow and
more
steady wins the
cautious
race,
because I have to be. Because needless to say, like when you got lousy balance, adding ice to it, it's not terribly
Yeah, I can only imagine.
So yeah, I'm not a big winter person.
No. And surprisingly, you live here.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I haven't fully figured that one out.
Are you born and raised in Ottawa? Or no?
No, so I came from Montreal. So it's
Oh, okay.
same weather.
Yeah.
Every winter, I'm like, why do I do this? Why? I'm a big fan of the whole. I don't know if you heard that Canada. There was a movement to get like Antigua
Yes, I
as
heard
like
this
an
a few years
11th
ago.
province. I think that's a fabulous idea.
Why was that? It was some sort of technicality or something?
Well, just I think the argument was for Canadians to have a place to snowbird, and then that way, I guess from an economy perspective, you're
Well, wasn't
keeping
it
the
that
tourist dollars in there.
Wasn't it that the island or the country or whatever it was like owned by Britain back in the day or something
think
like
so.
that? So there was, because we used to be a dominion of them. I don't know, maybe I'm pulling this out of my
No,
ass.
I think you're right. I think it was.
That's how they were trying to.
They were trying to be like, hey, well, Britain, can we work out some sort of deal? And
Yeah, I don't know. This was years ago though, right? A few years ago, I think.
I think it started as a politician did it as a platform, like in like 2009
okay.
or something, and then it kind of
Just to get publicity. for all.
resurfaced a bit in 2014. But I think it's a good idea. I like it. At the very least, extend that we can use OHIP in Antigua.
That would be awesome.
That
Because that's the scariest part about going on vacation. Is like, what if something happens to you and you got to go in some like third-rate hospital and you don't even speak the language, you know?
Well, that's the thing, and with disabilities, and another factor.
Take it
that,
up
like
another notch, yeah.
because that's where like I went away for winter and I went to Vancouver because I'm like, you know what? It's kind of nice that like the airline broke the wheelchair on the way down, so basically looked up the Vancouver branch of the place. I go here and could go get the wheelchair fixed and have it. So there's something to be said for just being able to go into a doctor, give your OHIP card, and in Vancouver the way they did it, you give the OHIP card and they take a photocopy of your credit card, and they'll only charge you if the OHIP card, because they have no way, like here if you go to the doctor and they swipe your OHIP, it's all connected with the computer.
Oh, so they're not sure.
Down there, they don't know,
Yeah.
because they don't know is the OHIP still valid.
Yeah. You could just be bullshitting them.
Because apparently I look dishonest, I don't know. I'm like, with this face
A real
like
swindler, yeah.
but yeah, so all that to say, I think Antigua should become a province.
Yeah.
It's actually, look it up, Turks and Caicos.
Turks and Caicos,
There you go.
that's what I meant to say. Where did I get Antigua from?
I don't
Turks
know.
and Caicos.
But hey, it sounded good to me at the time. It's
Uh,
nice to have a fact checker.
Basically anything warm is what I'm for.
Right? Even just temperate. Like, it doesn't even have to be tropical. It's just something like, okay.
Well, even like going to Vancouver, like when the first show I did there, the host was like, "Thank you for coming out in the snow," and I'm like, "Snow? Oh my God, how am I gonna get back to the train?" And then after the show, I get outside, and there's a guy skateboarding to the bus stop. If you can skateboard, that's not a snowstorm. I'm
No,
sorry.
not at all. Jeez. Even if it's a
I'm like,
long
you
one.
guys are adorable. Let me tell you about a snowstorm. But yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how some cities who don't deal with snow, just how like serious it hits them if even just a little bit of snow comes down. They call in like the army and stuff like that.
I think we had a quote unquote snowstorm while I was there, and like the city shut down, and it was
That's crazy.
like about maybe 5 centimeters.
I guess if you
And
don't have
like
all
the
the
next
gear.
day I went out, and like there was just small little passage.
You're like, what is
All right, I can get used to this kind of winter.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. Like
If you have
here,
the
we're
trucks
used
and
to it.
stuff, yeah.
You don't have I mean, I don't think they know what winter tires or
Oh, yeah.
salt on the road. Like,
No,
what's that?
They're clueless, I think.
I saw a guy with like a salt shaker trying to salt his driveway. I'm like, dude, that's not.
That's not the salt you need.
But it'll taste great. But
I was gonna actually. I already said on Facebook. I was just gonna congratulate you because you. I feel like I should be looking at the camera more.
Yeah, it's like
these are just props today. But Michael just won the Mike MacDonald Summer Comedy Competition at Yuck Yucks. So that's pretty awesome. That's all I wanted to say in person though, because it's
Thank you very much.
badass, man. I know it's tough competition.
Yeah, Ottawa, we're really blessed with insane amount of talent. Like if you look at, never mind the whole competition, but just the wild card and the finals.
Mm-hmm.
I would say anyone from any of those shows. Like honestly, when I saw the lineup for the wild card, I'm like, all right, I only have to compete against one of them in the final. Like from a competition perspective.
Yeah.
Because we have an amazing amount of talent in the city.
Oh, I agree fully. And it's funny because in the competitions, I feel like everybody's kind of feeling like that. Like, oh man, there's so many like real competitors here, not realizing that person's probably thinking the same thing about a lot of the other. You know what I mean? Like that's how I've always felt. Everyone there is. And any competition I've been in is pretty daunting when you're thinking about it too much. But
that's why I always say when I'm doing a contest, my thing is I plan out what I want to do with my set, and as long as I deliver it the way I wanted it to, let the chips fall where they may. Obviously, this time they fell very nicely. So
yeah, some of it depends on the judges. Like you never know who they're going to be and.
Judges, audience.
How did they do the final?
Did you have a good nap that day? There's so many factors at play, right? I mean, I once did a contest, and there was one joke that I do, a fairly regular joke I do, and for whatever reason, I flubbed the punchline. The analogy I used, it was like the figure skater who as she comes out of the triple axel, stumbles a little bit, and she tries to recover. But she knows, she just lost the medal. That was kind of how I
see
felt
their
at
face,
the moment. I tried it, and I mean it happens, right? So you never know. The finals at Yucks was entirely judges' vote.
I think that's how they always do the final round.
And they had 5 judges. Yeah, and I think it kind of makes sense because I mean obviously, and we've all done it. That when it's audience vote, we all beg our friends to come out,
calling
and vote
people you haven't talked to.
And we all get our friends to come out and vote.
Buy you a beer.
And that may help. See, you're nicer than me. I'm just like, can you do me a favor, please? If not, I was just gonna tell people you hate disabled people.
I never honestly tried that much to be like bringing a bunch of people because I never thought that that's not really how I wanted to win if I were to win. Which I don't think I was going to either way. So, I don't know. I could count on the same sort of core group of people to show up for me, and anyone else was just gravy, But
I think we all kind of have that core. Like, I have a group of friends who I think, if I get laryngitis, I could probably send them to do my set.
Oh, yeah. They've heard something.
Although some of the jokes I feel like probably wouldn't go over as well. Michael is kind of messed up.
Yeah. Then they're just
oh my God, that's terrible.
Saying hate crime shit.
So if you hear about hate crimes at Yuck Yucks, it's just someone else was doing my set.
It is weird though, because then you have that dynamic with those people who always come to your shows because they do it. It feels weird for me. I don't like when I know someone's in the audience and they've heard my joke already. I don't know. Maybe that's really immature, but I like thinking that no one's heard it and it's like a fresh experience for everyone, which is ridiculous.
I kind of feel bad for people that are coming. I'm like, I really should try a new joke just for their benefit because they must be getting bored of hearing the same thing all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would worry about. I use that to try to make myself at least always stick like 1 or 2 new jokes in, even if I'm really scared to do them because I think they're stupid or whatever. It's like, all right, I have like 90% of my set that I think is going to be good and it's going to get laughs. So who cares if like 10% there's a bit of a flat line? As long as that doesn't spiral you out, then no one gives a shit, if you can keep the beats going. So
yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people have said the idea is start strong, finish strong, and then if 1 or 2 jokes in the middle are a little less strong, so be it. but at least you make a good impression off the top.
It's a lot scarier if you're trying like a new opener or a new closer or something like that. 'Cause
Yeah,
like,
that's scary.
Closer not so much because you get to leave off the stage either way if it didn't go well. But like, coming out with a shitty opener is like fucking, I don't know.
And you know what? It all depends on the audience too.
Yeah, that's true.
Too.
Yeah.
And I don't like to blame the
material.
I don't like to blame the audience because I mean if like I can probably count on one hand the number of times I said I didn't do well because of the audience. Like to me, if I don't deliver the joke, if I don't get people to laugh, maybe I didn't deliver the jokes as well. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
I think there's a lot of factors that go into it though. Like,
Yeah.
it depends where are you going up. Like, are you going up fifth and the audience still isn't laughing? Because then it might be that the 4 comics that went up before you really didn't even help like grease the wheels at all, or you never know.
Yeah, and I mean realistically, going up at the beginning is always a little tough.
Exactly. Yeah, that's sort of what I'm saying. Is if
We
the
need
first
people
4
to get liquor into them before to.
Because
the
if the
more
first-
liquor, more funny we are, right?
Well, that's true. I think that's unfair also when people drink more, then the audience usually just likes those acts more because they're having a better time just from the booze flowing. That's a good point.
Yeah. Although I feel like I would like to think the comics have something to do with it. Laughing.
Oh, of course. It's not just the booze, but like.
Because if not, that'd be really easy. Just get them really super drunk.
I would like to see like more like if, say there was a competition and the audience wasn't allowed to drink. I would like to see if it still sort of really worked in those later acts' advantage that there was alcohol, or if you took it away, would it be more like even across the board? You know, it's got to factor in a bit.
And it's well, I think you may be a little looser.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is alcohol. Part of it is just people. Once you start laughing and are having a good time, you let go a little bit.
The
right?
atmosphere kind of just changes.
And it also really depends how big the audience is. Like if you have 12 people in the audience, they're a lot shyer to laugh than if you have a room full of
they
people.
feel more nervous and stuff. Yeah.
Well, because like I think there's the concern that if you're like, if there's like 6 people, because that's the smallest show I ever did.
Yeah.
There were 6 people. It was a little weird.
That's pretty small.
Well, what was like, okay, you know what? We're gonna give you back the money for the tickets, but once we're here, we may as well just have fun. And whatever comics want to went up and had a good time.
Those can be fun shows too.
And I'm like, once I walk down the stairs, I'm gonna tell jokes because I'm like, I didn't want to come down the stairs for nothing. But it was sometimes those small shows are fun. But I do think when you have a small group, people are a little shyer to laugh, right? Because if you're the only person laughing at a joke, you're a little nervous, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if there's a group, it becomes a little more contagious, right?
Well, because some people are afraid that they might be the only one to laugh at a certain joke, and then people will judge them for having that sense of humor.
Yeah.
For whatever that joke may have been, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, but to go back to your point about a completely dry show,
Yeah.
I actually once tried to do a comedy room in a coffee shop in Montreal. So it was just coffee, no.
Yeah,
liquor.
no one's. Well, there might be 1 or 2 drunk people that you don't know about, but.
No, well, this was like at like Friday afternoon at 6. Although who knows?
Yeah, I meant like someone with a little Irish cream in their coffee. You never know, but.
But yeah, it officially there was no alcohol.
Yeah.
But it was a different dynamic. I think there is something about I don't know if it's the stereotype or the trend that you're at a show, you have a drink, you're relaxing, and you loosen up a little bit, and then you can laugh, right? Although in fairness, the coffee shop, we also had lights on, so it was like fully illuminated, which I think people like being in like a dark space.
Yeah, they can kind of chuckle to themselves in the dark.
And you can laugh and smile and no one's looking at you. Oh my God, that guy's a pervert for laughing at that joke.
Yeah.
So I think there is something to be said though for the relaxed atmosphere of seeing back. I mean, I know personally I enjoy, aside from performing, I enjoy the going, sitting, and that's what's nice about being an opener, because once you're done, you can just sit back, relax, and
Oh yeah, for
enjoy it,
sure.
right?
I hate it when I have to leave. Like sometimes, I got to because it's like a weeknight show, and I got to bring the kids to school in the morning. And it's just not really worth it to stay out and like have beers with comics and shit, which is inevitably what might happen. So yeah, but whenever I can, I love to just watch acts because there's nothing better than just seeing different styles and being exposed to just different sorts of comedy. I don't know. Some people like to live in their bubble, but I think it's way better to just like kind of see what's out there and take a little bit from everybody. I don't mean take, but you know what I mean, like be influenced in different ways by different styles of comedy.
Well, yeah, I think you can learn, obviously, from different people, different styles.
Techniques and stuff like that.
And honestly, I mean, even before I started doing comedy, I was just a fan of comedy.
Yeah, it's just fun. Yeah, exactly.
So it's just going and watching, like, to me, like the pro touring comics who make it, like some of them just make it look like an art form.
Yeah.
The way they just seamlessly move
just
out of
like,
jokes, talk to the audience. It's like watching a painter, a Michael
someone fantastical,
painting, or
No.
because I do think comedy is an art form.
Oh, definitely.
It's a form of expression. I mean, I don't think we necessarily get the respect we should as an art form, but I do think it is an art form.
Well, people definitely feel the immediate right to criticize comedians like outright in a way that I don't think society scrutinizes other art forms as quickly. Because and it makes sense, I guess, because comedians are just saying pretty much
anything.
a lot of the time whatever's on their mind. Sometimes it's more of an act, but sometimes it's just who the person is. So I guess you're kind of putting yourself out there. It makes sense.
It does make
rough.
sense. I think. So here's my thing. I know a lot of people talk about, well, it's freedom of speech, and I always say there's absolutely freedom of speech, but freedom of speech doesn't mean freedom of consequences. So I have the right to say whatever I want. Other people have the right to say they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
And then in terms of, because I know there's always some movements, he said that, he should be banned, he should this, he should that, and all these. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what, maybe this is the capitalist in me, but I believe in free markets, right? If a comic says something that is not funny, that people are upset with, then don't go see their shows,
that's generally where I
buy their CDs, and eventually, they will face the consequences of that. And is that right? Absolutely, because at the end of the day, we're there to entertain an audience. Does that mean everyone's going to like our stuff? No. I know there's people that are offended by my material, which I always found weird.
What, other disabled people, you think?
No, actually, here's what's funny. People with disabilities like my stuff.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought, yeah.
It's more often than not, it's people who don't have disabilities that get offended. Weird. And I'm like, did you look at me and did you see me on? I'm like, I'm making fun of myself. Like,
why would you not just be impressed? I don't know.
Are you offended on my behalf? But I mean, that's okay. They may not come to my show, and that's fine.
It still seems very strange to me that would bother anyone. Like, I'm impressed when anyone does stand-up comedy, and I'm impressed when I see disabled people overcoming their disabilities. So if I saw someone doing both combined, that would be extra impressive. Like, I just don't understand where that hatred or uncomfortableness would come from. I don't know.
Well, it's like Russell Peter has his bit about people getting offended on behalf of other people. And he's like, that's the most offensive thing, because it's basically saying, I'm not of those people, but I think they're too stupid to be offended. So I'm going to be offended on my behalf. I don't know. And it was interesting. So there was the case with Mike Ward in the Quebec
He said the
Commission that he was making fun of a child with a disability. And it was interesting because I was in Montreal at the time when the court case came out, and CBC asked me if I wanted to come on and talk my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they're like, a disabled person and a comic. Let's get his reaction.
Yeah.
And I'll be, it was funny because the joke was in French. And I even asked the person I spoke to, just to make sure I had the translation right. I'm like, I'll be honest, at best, I could say it was the joke was in poor taste. That's as far as I would go. I personally didn't think it was in poor taste, but you could say it was in poor taste. That's about as far as you can go.
But you weren't even really that offended by it?
What offended me more, actually, was people, and I posted this because there was an article on CBC, and a guy commented, "You should not be making fun of the sick and the infirm." And my reaction was, I'm more offended of you calling me sick and infirm. I have a disability. Yes, doesn't make me sick and infirm. Like, I don't need someone to defend me. I can stick up for myself. And like, to me, if someone were to make a joke about me, and honestly, a lot of my comedy is basically when someone does or says something to piss me off, I use the joke, hitting them over the head with my cane is assault and would land me in jail. Whereas making a joke about them is perfectly legal.
Yeah, that's
true.
It's a healthy way to do it.
It's a little bit of therapy. So, I mean, honestly, I would have personally, like I know the kid wanted to be a musician. I would have come up with a song making fun of my work. That would have been my payback.
I wanted to clarify this because I think I know the guy you're talking about. I've heard about this many times, but the joke is this the guy who went on Rogan, right?
So the guy, it was.
I thought it was about a kid who was on like the Make-A-Wish.
It was called Petit Jeremy, and he had gone and sung for the Pope and with Celine Dion, and I forget the name of the condition he has.
I'm just trying to make sure I know the joke.
So the joke was that. I used to defend him. I'm like, it's good, let him go, live his dream. He can let him live his dream and he's still here because he thought it was like that the kid kind of before he died.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like the Make-A-Wish thing.
I'm gonna drown him. And
I didn't know that part.
And then supposedly kids at his school saw it on YouTube and started bullying him. And bullying's wrong.
It's unfortunate for sure.
But the reality is, he made a joke at a gala that was for adults. Mm-hmm. The fact
it wasn't meant to be.
The fact that everything can get out on YouTube. Well, that's an unfortunate reality of the world we live in.
Yeah.
Nobody sued the people at the gala who were laughing at the joke.
That's a good point. That's a valid point. Are they guilty too? Yeah.
No one went after the kids who were bullying him, which to me was a lot worse than the actual joke.
Yeah.
And honestly, my comment at the time was that if somebody's bullying made you want to kill yourself, because that was the argument, go talk to someone. And I'm not saying that, and I said at the time, I'm not saying that to be mean or cold-hearted, but the reality is when you have, people have said terrible things to me. I've had horrible experiences of people discriminating against me.
Well, being called like, wheelchair is probably an example of that.
Worse than that.
No, I can imagine, yeah.
And it sucks and it hurts and it's not fun. But if you're gonna let those people get you down, you're not gonna get very far. Because if you listen to those people, you're not gonna get very far. So yeah, I feel like we started.
That actually brings up kind of a good point, because I've been thinking about this a lot, knowing that you were going to come on. Just how I find a lot of the time the disabled people seem, maybe it's because they have more to overcome, but they do seem more driven. Like whenever I talk to you, you're always optimistic. You're always like this positive energy person. And I was noticing too, there's a girl in the neighborhood here. I was talking to my kids. Because my kids can be lazy little shit sometimes, and she's probably about their age, like I give her 10 to 12, and she's clearly got a prosthetic leg. and she's out there walking the fucking dog, and she's got a paper route and all this shit, and I'm looking at my kids like, what are you guys up to? Come on, like, this girl's got a disability at her age, and she's already like trying to conquer the world. And I said to them, I have no doubt this girl's gonna make something of herself when she's grown up. So.
So like, here's the thing, a prosthetic leg, like, I actually do have a prosthetic leg.
Yeah,
that's
you
kind
told me
of
that, yeah.
my least of my problems. So a prosthetic leg, particularly with all the cool stuff they can do now, not to take away from this girl.
No, of course, I meant more with her age as well.
It's simpler. I do think having a disability, so when I was a kid, I was like driven to show I was like everyone else. I didn't want to be different, and I was like, I went and played baseball. We had to modify baseball, like we had the kids on the street playing baseball, hockey, whatever.
Yeah.
And we used to go out on the weekends and play in the field across the street and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, granted, it was modified, but I still did whatever I could. And I think there was a little part of me always had the thing of, I'm going to show people what someone with a disability can do.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I started doing comedy and speaking, largely the reason I started all this stuff was because at the time I was going through, I had just gotten the wheelchair. So the wheelchair, I probably needed a wheelchair in the late 90s. But I'm male, and men are stubborn, and don't like to admit we need help.
What age would you have been at that time?
So I would have been, late 90s, I would have been mid-20s.
Okay, so was your disability something that's progressed over time, or?
So here's the thing, when I was, basically the whole long thing, parts of my skeleton weren't properly formed.
Okay.
So a big thing is that I had no hips when I was born.
Oh, geez.
And like my artificial leg, I was missing the bone between I think it's the tibia, which is a long one.
Okay.
I was missing the bone between the knee and the ankle.
Oh.
So they kind of took the smaller bone and built a knee joint. So there was like a club foot. They removed the club foot, made some form of a knee joint, and then that way I was able to be fitted with an artificial leg. So I actually had my first artificial leg when I was 18 months old. I'm still short, but I have grown, so it's not the same leg as when I was 18 months old. I just like to clarify that. But yeah, and because the hips were constructed, so I've actually had 9 operations. So one hip was 3, then 2 on my right hip. My left hip was 3, my right hip was 2, my right knee was 2.
And these are all being done at a young age?
So I think 3 on each hip, and then 2. So it was throughout elementary school. So my last surgery was in '88 when I was 13.
Okay.
For scoliosis. So scoliosis is a curvature of the spine.
Yeah, that I've heard.
So I remember I went into the doctor's office. They take a picture, and like when you see like a C in the middle of your spine, you're like, that doesn't look right. That's not good. So I had surgery to correct that. And when the hips were constructed, my doctor had told us, like, it should be enough to get you through university. And I'm now 40, I'm almost 44, September 20th, if anyone wants to send gifts. I'm not sure.
Happy early birthday.
I'm not when this goes. If it's after I accept like gifts, that's fine.
Yeah, we're not sure when this is going to be up yet. Soon, we're working on it.
But I'm almost 44, so I'm not sure if my doctor thought I was stupid and it would take me a long time to get through university, or I'm on borrowed time. But actually, late 90s is when I finished my studies, so I guess he was kind of right. The hips kind of started wearing out, so I was walking less and less. So then I actually started commercial on the TV for the scooter store in the U.S. and I saw like older people on their scooters doing groceries. So I'm like, that looks kind of cool. So an interesting fact: scooters are not as good in Canada just because they're lighter and on ice they don't go as well.
Okay.
And dealing with winter is one of the big reasons to have a wheelchair.
Yeah, of course.
Because now I pretty much don't walk outside in winters just because ice
It's super dangerous.
bad balance. So with the wheelchair I can just kind of glide over the ice. But yeah, so that's why I got the wheelchair. So I got the wheelchair. So altogether, I got the wheelchair. I broke out with my girlfriend at the time, in part because of the disability, and I moved out on my own. So when I moved out on my own, I went shopping, and every store I went to that I tried to do, like I'm an accountant by training, so that 36 months no interest payment
Okay.
was really attractive. So every place I went, I would apply for the financing. And without fail, every single person I spoke to was like, well, how are you going to qualify for financing? And I'm like, with my salary. And like I was working in finance at McGill, so I mean I was making, like my background's a CPA, so I was making a decent salary. And everyone just assumed because I'm in a wheelchair,
Yeah, that's
I must
so
not be
ignorant.
working. So I think that was the frustration that got me into comedy and talking. It was like, okay, I'm gonna set you fucking straight.
Yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. Then.
So I think there was always that need to prove what I could do. So I always was super busy. Like in school, I was doing, like I remember in SHIZA, I did an honors program and graduated, I think with like 3 certificates, because I was like doing 2 certificates, and then like the third one, I realized my last semester, I just needed 1 more course to do it. I'm like, I'll do that one too, why not?
Yeah, why not?
And I remember, so when I was in SHIZA, there was services for students with disabilities. Because like every post-secondary institution has whatever they want to call it, but it's basically an office to help, which is important, to help with any sort of, whatever the issue is. So if it's a learning disability or whatever kind of accommodations you need, if it's moving to an accessible building, whatever accommodation you need. So they do an assessment and then they'll work with you and your professors to make sure, and it's not about giving a student an advantage or like that. It's basically kind of taking away the disability angle so that you can compete academically
At the
on a
same
level
level.
playing field.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
That makes
So
total
like for
sense.
example, so I could invite fast, so I'd get extra time so that I'm not, just because I can't invite fast doesn't mean I'm not
shouldn't
going
be
to be able to
penalized, yeah.
finish the exam, or like I need to get up and move around because I couldn't sit for the full 3 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to cut into my exam time. Like it wouldn't be fair if I only got 2.5 hours because I needed to walk around when everyone else gets 3. So yeah. So I remember the student, the woman who ran the services at my SHIZA had said that, well, since you have a disability, you may want to do a reduced load. I'm like, okay, well, why would I do a reduced load? Like, once I'm in the class, academically, I'm fine. Like, that's actually my pet peeve, when people confuse intellectual disabilities with physical disabilities.
Yeah.
Like, I actually once had a guy, I gave him my business card, and it said, like, CPA, MBA, and he's like, well, clearly there's nothing wrong with your brain. And I'm like,
Ooh.
well, why would it be?
Yeah, what the hell? Maybe he thought that was like just a funny joke, like just really bad taste, you know?
I don't know, but I've actually had arguments with health professionals that I'm not doing any part of the questionnaire on mental capacity, because I'm like, it's taken us 3 weeks to schedule this appointment because I'm so busy with work and this and that other thing. So clearly, like I'm a CPA. Obviously, intellectually, either I'm fine or I'm just a really good actor.
Yeah, it sounds like people just see your disability and then assume you don't have your shit together.
It's like
That's
it's all
what
about.
I'm hearing.
Yeah. So, and I think that kind of in a way, that's a good part of the disability that I kind of, and I've tried to change my focus to being, like I changed from being about what I can do to trying to motivate people as to what anybody can do regardless of what challenges they face. Because like, I actually have a joke that we all face challenges, mine just get me better parking spots. But it's true, because there are, I mean, I know people that could have a whole lot more challenges than me, even though looking at me, you'd be like, well, clearly he has a hard time.
Well, and that's exactly what, like, when I was mentioning the little girl with the prosthetic leg.
Yeah.
Like, in comparison to you, you're like, oh, well, that's, like, the least of my problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I was comparing her to my kids and being like, my kids would lose their mind if they somehow lost their leg. They'd probably mope about it for, like, 5 years.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And granted, that would be traumatic, I'm sure, but, like, you get my point.
Yeah,
though.
yeah, exactly. It's
I look at her going and being a go-getter and doing stuff my kids don't have enough initiative sometimes to go and do, like walk the dog or get a paper route or whatever,
And it's funny because, one of my previous jobs was I was in financial planning. And my first year with the company, I won a sales award. And they were doing, for a national conference, stories about different consultants who have overcome different challenges to be successful in the business. And they had me interview. And they had me as one of the interviews. And I jokingly called my segment, he won an award and he's in a wheelchair. What's your freaking excuse? Because, that was part of the... Because, obviously, it does make it a little more challenging to go out and meet people and go visit clients and stuff like that. So, like in the video, we did that, we met at a Tim Hortons instead of going to someone's house, right? Because a Tim Hortons may be more accessible, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So you find ways to...
Shouldn't be a big deal,
So...
You'd have to be a pretty huge asshole if someone disabled says, oh, can we meet at the Timmy's? And you're just like, no, I want my freaking Starbucks. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know, I think...
Well, Starbucks is also wheelchair accessible.
Okay, yeah, that was a bad example, but whatever, some other place.
You mentioned Tim Hortons and Starbucks, so I think we should get product placement for this.
Yeah, I don't think they're listening, but hey, if they want to...
So there you go. We have to... We'll tweet it out to Starbucks and Tim Hortons, guys. You gotta mention.
Yeah. Who wants our love more?
I think we at least deserve a free.
Can both send gift baskets, and whichever one's more impressive will get our allegiance.
There you go. I like it.
Yeah.
Whoever sends the bigger gift card.
There's something I was gonna say to you. Oh yeah. So you told me about how Yuck Yucks and Absolute here, they're not super accessible. So the question I was going to ask is, have you ever found like other venues in other cities maybe where they did have a more accessibility for comics?
So it actually was funny. I was in Edmonton, and I got a spot at the Yuck Yucks in Edmonton, and I arrived. So the Yuck Yucks in Edmonton is in casino. So it's like a hotel casino, and then there's the Yuck Yucks club. Really nice club actually. And I arrived, and I'm just by habit park the wheelchair outside and start walking in the stairs because I just assumed. Someone, they didn't realize I was one of the comics. They came out there like, oh sure, there's a ramp on the side, so there's a ramp that you can get in to the showroom. And I'm like, oh okay. So I went in and they're like, where can we see you? And I'm like, no, I'm one of the comics. So then we went to the green room. Which was up a flight of stairs. So my thrill was limited, but...
No, but still, it's a step in the right direction.
But it's a step in the right direction.
Or a roll in the right direction.
Yeah, and my attitude towards accessibility is that I personally feel government has a role to play in getting our infrastructure, because the reality of the matter is that government has allowed, and when I say government, I'm talking all levels, all parties. This is not a knock against any particular person, but we have allowed society not to be accessible, right? And buildings to be built without being accessible and all this kinds of stuff. And the reality of the matter is that for a smaller business, if they were going to pay, so there's actually a venue on a second floor. And I was talking to the owner, were talking to me about trying to make things accessible, and like to put an elevator in their place would be like $100,000.
Jesus.
And
I
honestly,
think so with this.
if the business is going to spend $100,000, no one's going to be going to this venue because they'll probably go out of business.
Yeah.
So there needs to be some sort of support
Incentive, like.
or I mean, one idea I had was if city council was to say, you know what, we're going to give you a break on your property taxes until you recoup the cost of what you put in. And obviously there's a limit of how much of that they can do in a year. Because obviously that means less money for the city, and I mean at the end someone's going to be paying for it. But I think if we as a society want an accessible society, we all have a role to play, and government has a role to play. And it can't just be, well, if you want the customers, you have to make your place accessible.
Yeah, it shouldn't be like solely on the owner,
I mean, like, put it this way, like when I see a bank that's not accessible, I'm like, okay guys, how much money do you charge in fees? Like when it's a big company making all kinds of money.
Yeah, you have no excuse.
Dude, you can pay the $2,500 to put up.
And how often would something like that happen, say a bank? Like how do you see that?
Well, there was so I'm thinking of a particular case. There was a bank, I think it was a Scotia bank, that they were under renovation, and the other exit was through a building that closed at like 5, so you couldn't get after hours.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, well, could you at least put, because the accessible door was through another building, and it's like, okay, well, you know, for the money you guys make, you can, but for like the average small business, and I know people say, well, so I've spoken with people, because Yuck Yucks actually used to be in a hotel, and I want to say Capitol Hotel or Albert Suites, or I forget that.
Oh, it was on Albert somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, so it used to be in a hotel.
Yeah.
So you used to be able to go down a flight, down the elevator, and get in that way.
That's
and then they moved to an inaccessible location. And I remember at the time, I was joking. I was still living in Montreal, and I was joking with a friend that we should do it like the. My opening joke was going to be, I gotta hand it to you guys. Most places go from inaccessible to accessible. You're like the first ones that did it the other way. But I didn't think my comedy career was quite at the point where I could get away with that joke. But, and I know people say, well, why didn't they move to an accessible location? There's not that many. It's hard to find accessible spots. And if all businesses are going to be looking for accessible spots, rents are going to go up and it's going to get super expensive. Like, it's hard, right? Like, as you know, when we do a comedy show, you have to set up the stage and the seating and everything, and the speakers and the lighting and have everything. So it's hard to find that perfect spot that would be, like, honestly, I've been trying for like a year now to find a place to do an accessible open mic that would also be good for comedy. But the reality is most places that have private party rooms or private rooms where we could do it, the rooms are down a flight of stairs, or the bathroom is down a flight of stairs.
There's got to be somewhere we can find.
So there's a couple of places I'm looking at. So stay tuned.
No, that's a really good initiative to be undertaking, though.
Well, I'll be honest, part of it is my selfishness. That in winter it's harder for me to get to the
but
club,
it's not selfish. It's.
But I
don't know. I don't think that's selfish.
It actually what triggered it was I did a show at Three Brewers on Spark Street. So they have the upstairs, which there's an actual elevator through the Spark Street Mall, so you can't get up to the second floor via if you're in a wheelchair. And there was a guy there who was in a wheelchair, and he was saying to the comic, he goes, "I love comedy, but I'm lucky in a way in that I can get out of the chair, and I have the luxury of being able to walk down the stairs, right?
Yeah.
Maybe difficult, but I can do it. He can't, right? So he can't get to the clubs. So there is that question of finding that venue that people can come to.
Even just for audience
in
members,
wheelchairs. Well, audience member wise, there is some of the satellite rooms that are accessible.
The smaller rooms, yeah.
I know you had Chris Kingsbury on
Yeah,
last episode. And I know his breweries, I think most of the breweries are.
Yeah, I haven't actually been out to any of
accessible.
them yet, but that doesn't surprise
I
me.
know
though.
Stray Dog was, well, I feel like lifting kegs of beer down a flight of stairs would probably be hard.
Right,
So
yeah.
I feel like probably
That
the
explains
breweries
some of it.
are going to be super
Open
accessible,
concept,
have
flat,
around,
Or
because those
yeah,
kegs
sure.
look heavy. But yeah, so there are some routes that are accessible as an audience member. But what I want to do is have the option that if someone with a disability wants to try comedy,
performer, yeah.
they can come and we'll give them a 5-minute spot, just for the simple fact that people, like otherwise, I mean for most comics, it's going to be a little bit more established comics, but recognizing the fact that someone in a wheelchair who wants to do comedy can't really become a more established comic because
Yeah,
there's
it really
nowhere for them
sucks.
to get the like open mic wise.
Which is so weird because as far as like things you might want to try to do, whatever it is, a job or something else, stand-up seems like something where you're like, oh, well, that should be accessible to pretty much anyone because it's a microphone and your voice, you know what I mean? You can be more moving around on stage if you want, but as long as you can
Well,
talk.
stand-up may not be accessible to someone in a wheelchair. Way to be incensed. No, I'm kidding. Sorry. I had
Yeah,
to
you
do-
know what I mean,
I
though,
had to
like,
do it.
yeah.
But yeah, it's,
Actually, the name's offensive. Stand up.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
stand-up,
Well, there's actually some comics call it sit-down comedy.
Yeah.
Actually, what I like doing is if I'm like out and I'll meet a friend and he's with someone and they go, Mike does stand-up, and I'm like, dude, that's pretty offensive. And like the friend, they know I'm joking, but the friend looks
Just
super
bust their balls,
uncomfortable. Yeah, I am making fun. You gotta have a little fun with people, right?
I was going to say, yeah, I could see you messing with people here and there, but it's all in good spirits.
My all-time, what I like doing is, so you've seen my van that's like automatic with the lamp and everything.
Yeah, it's
So
awesome.
there's like a little remote that I use. But I was coming back after a show with a friend of mine and I was giving her a lift home. And I had my hand in my pocket and I said door open and I pushed the button so the door's open. And I had her convinced that my van was voice activated. I'm like, you try it. So this poor girl is standing on the St. Catherine Street yelling at the van going, door closed! I guess it just doesn't like you.
That's funny, man. That's hilarious.
Fortunately, she has a sense of humor. Which I guess you have to. She came from we were coming from a comedy show.
Yeah,
So
but that's still actually a really hilarious prank to pull on someone.
I actually let them believe that they're opening it with their voice. I don't mess with the kids. Just not to traumatize them.
No, that's kind of cool though.
And like my thing is because kids, I actually do talking in schools and stuff.
Motivational speaking type stuff, yeah.
Well, motivational, but also like sensitization. So like just basically, you guys can ask whatever you want.
Just raise awareness.
Well, because kids are curious, right?
Yeah, I'm
And,
curious.
like,
That's why I was asking that
sometimes
earlier.
kids will come up and like ask me questions about the wheelchair.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Better they ask the question than than not. And because my thing is, I actually have a theory that there's kind of like maybe like 20-25% of people are totally cool with someone with a disability because they've known people with disabilities. They have friends, went to school, family member, whatever. So they're cool with people with disabilities. They're used to it. Then there's the majority, and then there's kind of the 10% who, whatever I do, whatever I say, I'm not going to get through to them. And they're just ignorant and there's no getting through to them.
Mhm.
And then that kind of leaves the majority of people who are just maybe a little curious and don't know what to say and don't want to be offensive, but they may be curious. And that's who like I kind of focus on.
I think that's where I
raising
qualify to a
awareness,
degree.
right?
Like,
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I don't think you're. Well, I think even the fact because like that 10% wouldn't even talk to me, let alone invite me. to come do their podcast.
Yeah, I don't see that. No.
But I think it's important talking to, like, I always laugh because I was in Dominican on vacation last winter, and I found a place super accessible, and it was weird because I actually flew out of Montreal, and I had an easier time figuring out get the transportation from the airport to the resort and the resort to the airport than I did in Montreal, which is a little weird and sad for Montreal because I'm like, I don't really, like, my Spanish is really limited. And you think Dominican Republic is like a developing country, but they were able to do it.
Wow.
But like I was wheeling on like the path, and there was a couple with a little kid, and they like moved aside so I could pass. I'm like, well, this is okay. I'm like not. I got a drink. I'm not in a like. It's a resort. I'm not even
exactly.
rushed to go anywhere. And then as I passed, the kid's like, "That's so cool. Can we get one?" Because I think he thought the wheelchair was like one of the
something
things from the resort. I'm like, poor kid. Or like, there's always a little kid who like sees the van lower and it's like, cool car. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really making it hard on the parents when that kid turns 16.
Yeah.
I don't know, I want the van that's lower. It's really cool.
That thing's pretty cool. You could like cross a little baby moat with that thing.
Yeah.
I saw a song where you put it across the curb. I was like, oh,
it's pretty high tech.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, I'm definitely curious about stuff like that, and that's why I wasn't sure like what's appropriate to ask when it comes to disability. But I'm the same way with like anybody. If I like my friend Abdul, that I've known him for I don't know a year or two now, but I ask him about like Muslim stuff because I don't know that many Muslim people, and he's not even Muslim anymore, but he grew up that way.
Okay.
So he has that information that I don't have, and I just want to learn about everybody's stuff. Like Kyle, I've always been, I had friends that were gay, but I've never really asked what's that like being a comedian that's gay, or you know what I mean? There's always something you can learn from different people's perspectives, and I think that's like really what everyone should be doing, and then we could all kind of get along and sort of understand each other a bit more, but I don't know why that's so hard for people to get. I don't know.
I think people are offended to avoid to say something offensive or...
Yeah, see, I don't...
I mean, learn, no, but like my thing is learn something and admit the fact you don't know things. I mean, there's lots of stuff I don't know, and I'm interested in learning about it, and it's...
Yeah, everyone's like, I don't embarrass easily. I think that's part of it. Like, I have like, no problem approaching people about this, that, or the other thing, and I really...
You should. No.
Well, no, that's the other thing. I think I'm quick to notice when I, like, if I do offend somebody, I feel genuinely bad, and I make a genuine, like, effort to apologize, and I think that goes a long way, too. Is having the hindsight to go like, oh, did I come off like a dick just there, And if you did, then having the follow through to be like, hey, sorry for being a dick. Like, I don't know.
And I think it's also if you know people, like, so there's a comic in Montreal who we were at an open mic, and he introduced me. He goes, "Your next comic is cripplingly fun. Has been called cripplingly funny," and I thought it was hilarious. Another comic found it hilarious, and it's funny because this comic and I were good friends, and we always joke that people must think we hate each other because we're always giving each other hard times, knocking each other, making fun of each other, but in like a fun way, right?
Yeah.
Like in a playful way.
Just ripping on each other.
But people people looked at him like he was a complete monster, and
Yeah.
I found that even more funny that people were offended on behalf of me.
That's weird. I would instantly look to the person, like in that case I would have looked to you to see your reaction, because you could have had a varying reaction, and it becomes unfunny if I see you and you're the person who's got the disability and he's making that joke, and I see that you're uncomfortable, then I think it becomes maybe a little inappropriate to keep laughing at that point, you know what I mean? Because you're like, oh, well, this guy's clearly being hurt by that comment, and he falls under that category or whatever, Anyways.
And I think it's interesting, so we were at a show in Montreal at an open mic, and there was a comic who was making a joke about a guy who had, I don't know exactly what his disability was, but he was in a wheelchair, and they used to be in the metro station at Eaton shopping center in Montreal, and they used to sit there collecting money. And he was like, I always wonder, how did he get there? Because like the metros aren't super accessible. Did someone bring him and drop him off? Are they picking him up? And it was kind of a funny joke the way he built it up and did it. And there was a comic there who had a disability later in life, and was very angry about it, and actually told me off that I didn't get offended at that joke because I have no respect for myself, and I did. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a comedy show. It was a joke. It was a funny joke. And I think, so years ago in training, I was doing training. I used to do like professional development courses.
Okay.
And it was a course that was, so I was doing certification to be able to offer these courses.
Okay.
And the guy who was teaching us, he called it the come from. And come, C-O-M-E.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting dirty here, just nothing photographic.
Yeah.
And it was basically when someone says something, you also have to look at it from the perspective of where they're coming from. So I can know a comic could say something to me as a joke, and I know it's a joke, and I can take it as a joke. Whereas if someone else were to say it,
I get that. You don't know where it's coming from.
I'll give you the perfect example. This comics will always joke about how long it takes me to go to stage. And they're like, okay, well, Michael, do you want to start now? So, like before the show starts, do you want to start now? So by the time it's your turn, you'll be near the stage. And it's meant to be playful and funny and teasing. Whereas in another context, it might be offensive. So I think it's important to remember where people are coming from, and there's a big difference between saying, "Hey, I want to know something about your disability. Are you able to do something?" and going, "Oh, well, you can't do anything because you have a disability." Mm-hmm. There's a world of difference between the two.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Right? So, yeah, I think, but I'm with you, man. I think we do well to actually, and that's what I think is nice about comedy, actually. You really get, like, if you look at the diversity in Ottawa comedy, you get to hear jokes about a lot of different topics.
Yeah.
And people talk about, so you get a little peek into what the world through the eyes of someone who has a disability, or through who's someone who's part of the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, exactly.
Or First Nations, or whatever their material is about. And I think it's interesting, right? Because it's a good way to learn.
I think I've said that before too, I think it's almost a more entertaining show just right off the bat if you know you're going to have a diverse lineup, because, I don't know, you're just going to see all those different viewpoints, and that's more interesting to me than just seeing a bunch of guys like me go and tell jokes about stuff that I know. That can hit home too if somebody really like touches on something that you can relate to. Of course, that's going to be like hilarious, but it's also not bad to expand your mind and like learn about new shit. You know what I mean? Like, and
I think the advantage, like from the production side of doing, like when I do a show, I try to do a diverse lineup.
Yeah.
And
appeal to more audiences.
And it's not about, because I know people say, oh, it's political correctness.
Yeah.
Is this that? No, it's just a matter of comedy subjective. So not everyone in the show is gonna like every comedian. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, if you go any comedy show, doesn't matter which one, if you ask the audience, everyone's going to have a different favorite, right?
It's true.
One may
got a different take home
with a different, or they may have a different favorite joke. I mean, maybe not like the Weekends, because obviously the headliner, all else being equal, I think it's fair to say the headline is probably going to be the star of the show. That's but everyone's going to have a different favorite, right? Or what they identify. So I think there's a strength in, and I think that's in general in society. Like I'm of the school of thought, diversity makes us better as a society. It's different ideas.
Agreed, yeah.
It's like I remember when I was in CEGEP and university, my friends used to joke that my birthday dinners were like the United Nations because it was literally every race, background, and just because it's like
That's
to me,
awesome,
people
though.
are people, right?
Yeah.
And you can learn stuff, right? And learn different experiences, right? Like, I mean, growing up in a suburb of Canada, of a Canadian city, it's a very different experience. And I'll get, it just popped into my head, the perfect example. A friend of mine who I used to work with was from Rwanda. And we were just out chatting, and I was talking about how on the weekend I was going to get together with some friends from high school. She's like, yeah, I don't have friends from high school because they were all killed in the Rwandan genocide. And
Oh man.
that really
heavy,
put things into, and it wasn't even that she said it as like pity or like to make me feel bad or anything.
No, it's just her reality.
It was just her reality, and it's
That's insane.
and it's interesting to get to know other backgrounds because how much do we know what happened from the news, but do we know what it was like to go through that?
No,
obviously not.
No.
Thank God.
We actually, my fiance Kelly, she has a close friend who's, I don't know if they're married, but they have a child together for sure.
Okay.
She's with similar situation, a man who came over from Rwanda, and I think he has some family, but he definitely lost like a brother or something like that. I'm not positive, but yeah, it puts it in perspective. You're like, Jesus, we have it pretty good over here in North America for the most part.
Yeah, if you ever want to feel good about
That's what I tell my
lucky,
kids too. Like it sounds like the cliche thing, like eat your dinner. Some kids in what insert country here aren't getting any food tonight, but it's true. Like it's just because I think in this society over here, it's hard for us to even fathom in like a tangible way at all because it's so removed from what our existence is like.
It was interesting because I was in Carlinwood Shopping Centre. There was a guy who had opened a kiosk. So he's a Syrian refugee. So he was part of the Syrian refugee program that came to Canada.
Okay.
And he used to have a catering business in Syria and then was a refugee during their civil war. And then he came here. And like I'm talking to this guy and he just seems, and like he's got his wife and kids and here he's trying to start up a business, start a new life in Canada, learn the language.
Yeah.
And he just seems so happy. I'm like, geez, like I know you were saying, like you look at people with disabilities. I'm like, I'm sitting there talking to this guy, and I'm like, could I be that positive and happy after going through? Like he didn't talk too much about it, but like I'm like getting uprooted, losing everything you have, and then coming as a refugee, starting from scratch, and like
he's happy because he's in a place where like people aren't trying to murder his family. So
so I guess I guess that's
probably like a huge rush, like positivity in your life when no one's trying to murder your kids anymore.
Yeah, I guess that's probably.
But I get what you're saying as well. Like there could have been so much trauma.
He's not living in like a tent in an open field.
Well, and he could have PTSD or whatever for all the shit he went through before coming here. You know what I mean? Like if he watched someone stab his best friend, or who knows what kind of shit, or some school got blown up in front of him, or who knows.
I mean, I know. So like my grandparents were Holocaust survivors, and they came here after in 1948 after the war.
Okay.
And I remember my grandfather. So of course in Montreal, there's always the language issue, and like my grandfather used to say. So like when he got. When he had to learn French to know, like he wrote out like a little index card with the days of the week in English, French, so you could understand
like a cheat
the
sheet or
times.
whatever,
And he's like, you know what? If they want me to learn French, I'm perfectly fine with that. They're not killing me, so that's a positive.
Fair.
So when I think you're right. When you come from an environment where there's people wanting to kill you.
The cup always seems kind of full after that,
No one wants to kill me. Life's good.
Murder's pretty much like the lowest,
I feel like that
situation,
Well, because there's the Pavlov hierarchy of needs. Is it Pavlov?
No.
Maslow. There you go. This is why I don't try to sound smart.
I don't even know what you're talking about yet, so I feel the stupidest in the room now.
There's a theory of Maslow hierarchy of needs. So it basically says personal safety, clothes and shelter, and then you get into the more
I think
high-level stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, once you get kind of your basic, that no one's trying to kill you, and you have a roof over your head, things kind of start looking up, and you can look for other better things.
Like when you're playing The Sims.
Exactly.
Make sure they're able to breathe.
You're not going to worry about audio on a podcast if someone's trying to kill you.
Yeah,
right?
well, true. Yeah, that's
bonus.
Yeah.
You know what they say, first world problems?
Yeah. No, I like how you tied that in, too.
Yeah. I just figured if anyone needs a reminder about why, if they're like, how come the podcast isn't, the sound isn't good?
We should mention once in a while. Oh, that gives me a chance to insert. If you don't like it, you can send an email to justchillpodcasting@gmail.com. Or if you have any just positive comments, that's great too. But yeah.
See, I'm nice. I just usually say, if you have positive comments, please tell us. If you don't have positive comments, the world's negative enough. Stop.
Yeah, I didn't actually mean it. Please don't send me negative emails because I won't read them. But no, man, thanks again for coming. I don't know, what are we at for a clock?
I'd say you're well over an hour.
Yeah, because we've been rocking about an hour and a half for these podcasts so far.
I didn't mark it on my watch when we started, but...
No, we've got some meat here for sure. I'm just looking at my questions and what do I have. I mean, we've been asking everybody what, because of the wall of inspiration, sort of like if you could have one superpower out of anything, what would you pick? So I'm trying to keep that as a regular question.
A superpower, leaping tall buildings, because then I wouldn't have to do the stairs.
See, I knew I asked you this. There was going to be a joke about it. I was almost not going to ask.
I'm going to go with that.
But I didn't want to give you special treatment, so...
No, I appreciate that. Please, feel free to answer.
Well, hey, man, you could have picked, like, mind control or, like, invisibility is what Kyle picked, and, what did Chris pick, like, telekinesis, like, moving shit with his mind, so... I didn't know which way you were going to go with it.
Well, see, telekinesis actually would be a good one, because then I could just move all the audience upstairs, right? And just, like, bring the stage up.
I thought you were going to say, like, move your legs with your telekinesis so that you could kind of float around or whatever. But that's probably, you'd have to be focusing on that all the time, I guess, so that would be like, you wouldn't be able to tell jokes anymore.
I feel like that would probably make telling jokes hard. I wonder how that would...
They're like, he's not disabled, he floated up here. I can't even do that, yeah.
But yeah, and actually thank you for not changing the questions, because it was funny.
I actually really thought about that before. I was like, I don't know, because is he just going to say like, well, flight, duh, or some sort of way to be able to be more mobile or whatever, you know, but...
You know what, it's funny you say that, because people have actually asked me if I ever wish not to be disabled. I mean, it's hard to know that, because having a disability is what I know, right? Like,
I was going to say, it's always been a part of your life.
Like, since I can remember, I had an artificial leg, so it's not like, like this is just how I am and how I do things. And in a way, I think it, as corny as it may sound, maybe the disability is meant to be so I can inspire others or makes me work harder, or I don't know. Maybe
my mom actually told me about, my dad probably knows this, but my mom's into a lot of spiritual stuff. She's not really religious, but she's very open-minded when it comes to like soul and afterlife and that kind of stuff. And she told me something about a book she read. I don't know where this is coming from. I'm probably going to butcher this, but something about a belief that people, before they come down to earth, like before you're born, that we pick the lives that we're going to live based on the challenges that they're going to bring and the opportunities they're going to afford our souls, essentially, to elevate themselves through overcoming those challenges. I don't know. It's maybe a little out there, but it's a nice concept, yeah. Like, you know, because other people are born, you know, with AIDS in the middle of some shitty country where there's no food, or like you could be born with you know, a plethora of things. Could be anything, but that's the theory, though. I don't know where it comes from. I'll have to ask her, but something that always stuck with me is being like, well, that's interesting. It
is an interesting
philosophical concept to wrestle with, you know.
That is deep.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That is pretty deep. Yeah. I think that actually makes sense. Right?
Well, I mean, it's a weird thing to think about, the idea of your soul picking your life, because, you know, we were not conscious of that time. you
Yeah,
don't really
but-
remember before you were born. So it's a weird thing to put yourself in that place.
I mean, I know a lot of religious people say God would not give you what you cannot handle. So kind of this along the same
That's fair.
lines.
Yeah, that's
We got way deeper than
We
Jupiter
did, yeah.
Hours, eh? This
That's
is pretty,
cool.
This is pretty deep.
that's a good note to end on.
Philosophical.
We've said lots of positive things too. I think this is just a great talk. The other thing I forgot to mention to you, I guess I could say this off the air, but trying to get people to put something up on the wall. So I know I should have texted you that before. I totally fucking spaced on that, but even like a business card or just some sort of. I'm trying to make this like a den of experiences and things that have been a part of my life, so that it just makes it conducive. You know.
We'll hold it up to the video camera.
There you go.
Self-promotion, and then
Honestly, that's good enough.
We'll
Yeah,
put
it adds to the
business
collage
card on
wherever
the
you want it. We can put it up.
Oh, nice. Okay.
We'll take a picture and shit. But thanks again for coming on, man. Congrats again
Awesome.
on the win, and
Thank you.
we'll bring you back on with the audio working next time in full force.
Sweet.
All right.
Okay, cool.
Oh.